You could hit stop video in the lower left-hand corner, and also hit what the host has just put up. But let me give just a warm welcome to our leader, our speaker, Evan Pritchard. Almost any time of year, we count on him to deliver a spiritual topic. He's an author, he's a musician, and he's a teacher, and he's always welcome at the Unitarian Universalist congregation at Rock Tavern.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you. So today is the first day of Kwanzaa, and that's not why I was hired, but I cannot ignore this amazing holiday, the first day of the 7 days. And so I'm going to, I heard these principles again recently, the 7 Kwanzaa principles, and I really loved them and I fully identified with them. And then I found that, there are words for all of these things in my own Anishinabe language and the tradition of the Midewiwin. But we don't tend to light candles. So as I'm going through the PowerPoint, I'm going to lay down 7 sticks, one for each of the days and the principles. So but you'll maybe see me in the corner, right? Will you see me in the corner? Yeah. So 1, 2 sticks, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. These are very old sticks, you see, because it's an old tradition. So I'm going to show a PowerPoint that'll, I think, help you follow all this. So I'm going to do share screen, and so Kwanzaa means first fruits. And in my presentation, I'm going to show you the parallels and then go into the first fruits of the Algonquins. So we'll explore parallels between the 7 principles of Kwanzaa, which are for each of the days, December 26th to January 1st. 7 general principles observed in the Midewiwin teachings of Anishinabe, which are similar, and they're not numbered 7 usually, but here today I will. And then the 7-month berry calendar, which is our kind of main feature. So I'm going to do a slideshow and from the beginning. Okay, first fruits. It is December 26th today, the first day of Kwanzaa, an African-American holiday started in 1965 at a time of racial unrest, recognizing 7 ancient principles reflecting strong indigenous values. These first fruits correspond strongly with the Algonquin values of my own people, especially as expressed in the Anishinabe, which you know as the Ojibway and other nations, one of 30 Algonquin languages. It's also part of the Midewiwin tradition that they hold. You may also notice parallels with their 7-month berry calendar, which I'm going to show you later. Not well known among the mainstream, but very well known to Native people. And I was adopted into an Anishinaabe community at the age of 45. I was not a baby. I'm familiar with this ancient tongue, but do not speak it fluently, so I'm reading from my notes. So first of all, on each day of Kwanzaa, observers of this holiday light a candle for that day's principles on their candle, their holder, their kinara. And in the Shinabe, I will use sticks. So I have a stick for unity. Emoja, my Swahili is not practiced, so I may leave it out. But for today, to strive for and maintain unity in the family, community, nation, and race. And here I have a picture of the blue heron, which are a symbol of peacemaking. So this word is Midewiwin is unity in Ojibway and in Anishinabe. We strive to maintain unity through the way of the heron. It's a body of knowledge and a way to prevent conflict through discussion combined with symbolic or ritual action. And this promotes unity in our people, in the family, the nation, and race. Of course, we all agree with Jay. We all need more of unity these days. We address confusion, fear, and anger, all of them together, Lu Wei Wudi, directly as it arises, and we try to transform it into positive energy, and not just to suppress it, but to work with it and transform it. And the heron is the symbol of peacemaking because he makes peace with other birds. He will go between fighting birds, and his giant wings, he will spread them slowly and separate the fighting birds. 2, self-determination. Kujichagulia. Again, I don't speak Swahili. That's for December 27th, to define ourselves, name ourselves, create for ourselves, and speak for ourselves. And these interpretations of Kwanzaa are from the African American Museum website. So in Algonquin, Tiben Wihidzo, self-determination. This literally means independence, this word. A related word is Tibenin Dizoin, which means freedom. In a modern world where our people are often misunderstood, it is essential that we have free will and self-determination so that we learn from our journey how to find a home in our community. Free will is one of the 4 gifts of the Ojibway and of the Midewiwin. So there's a picture that to me means a lot because the eagle is the symbol of freedom for us. Now 3, the 3rd day, December 28th, collective work and responsibility, Ujima, and that one I can pronounce, to build and maintain our community together and make our community's problems our problems and solve them together. And I thought that was also a one that rang true with the Unitarian Universalist principles. So there's a word, mamawandamidag, which is collective work and responsibility to work as a group. There's another version of the same word that I was taught years ago at the knee of the late Archie Chichu, Maumu endodemic. Let us all work together in harmony. So that's the word that he loved and passed on to me, Maumu endodemic. So if we were alive, I could have us all say that. You can say it, Maumu endodemic. I won't hear you though. Number 4 for December 29th is cooperative economics, Ujamaa, to build and maintain our own stores, shops, and other businesses and to profit from them together. So in Algonquin, Anishinabe, we say meshkodonege, means a fair exchange. And in No Word for Time, I used a Micmac word, which is my own language, sasiewai, means everything is exchanged. So we need to understand what it is and how to express it in our lives properly. So there's all kinds of exchange in nature and when you're doing trade. It's everywhere, every day. 5, Nia is purpose, December 30th, to make our collective vocation the building and developing of our community in order to restore our people to their traditional greatness. So in Algonquin, an abadizij is purpose. This is one of the 4 gifts of the Ojibway also. We all have a purpose or mission, and our spirit name reflects this. It is in the vision quest that we learn of our purpose through a dream or vision and how to best serve the Creator. 6 days, December 31st, New Year's Eve to us, Imani, faith, to believe with all our hearts and our people and the righteousness and victory of our struggle. And Algonquins rhyme with that. Tebetoe is belief. Tebwetoe, is belief. There's a belief in the seen, such as in the divinity of Mother Earth, and also the unseen, belief in the divinity of the Creator. Belief in ourselves and our native way of life leads to inner peace, peace of heart, like purpose and free will, is another one of the 4 gifts of the Ojibway. And our Anishinabe language is another gift that has been given us by the Creator, such as the faith in the power of tobacco in ceremony is to some faith, some it's based on experience. So you say, try it and see if you like it. If it works for you, it's good. So I believe in tobacco. 7, creativity, Humba, that's January 1st. To do always as much as we can to leave our community more beautiful and beneficial than we inherited it. This is a very important principle to, I think, all Indigenous people. Kije Ninjigawe, creativity is one of several ways to help creation continue. That's one of our mottos. Through art, music, dance, poetry, we help our culture continue as well. As Aboriginal artists, we become tools of the Creator. Art has the power to bless, heal, send, and hold prayers. So art has a ritual function as well. Beauty is one of the most important aspects of the natural world and of the Red Road, which is the Anishinabe form of the beauty way, in which life is art. And there's no framework for it. All life is art. And that's an old paintbrush, very old. So now, having honored, I hope, Kwanzaa, honoring the universality of those teachings, I'll go into my main topic, savoring the last berry before winter, a delicious Algonquin metaphor for time. And I will try to fix my camera. Okay, so then let's see. In traditional life in Algonquin, there's no word for time. The 7 moons of each year are measured in berries. In June come the strawberries, then the mulberries, then the raspberries. In July, we have service berries, choke cherries, and blueberries by August. In September, cranberries start to be edible. And in October come the blackberries. It's only when the blackberries are done is the spirit of frost allowed through the gate at last and welcome. It's part of the cycle of the year as it comes to a fruitful ending with the eating of preserves. Likewise, it is that time of year that we look back and we savor the memories of the year 2021, the good ones, as we have preserved them in our stories, songs, and poems, and it's a harvesting of the heart. The bear plays a role in teaching humans how to enjoy the berries as medicine. And I also want to remind you that life imitates berries because it's delicious. So just take a moment to think back over some of your own favorite memories from 2021 and preserve them because they're resources for you and they're power. They're just those good, positive, spiritual memories are power for you to get you through the day and the year. First of all, you always start with the strawberry. The first berry to appear is the strawberry, the leader of the berries because of its red color, just as the cardinal is the leader of the birds for its red color. Its numbers increase throughout June, peaking at the very end of the month. The first day of July is usually the time of the strawberry festivals, and the berry crops fade and are gone by the end of July. So I'll also use these sticks to mark the berry calendar period. There are stories about strawberries in heaven, in the afterlife, as we ascend the mountain path towards the bright summit, where we would find pure awakening of the soul. We find delicious strawberries in each side of that path, especially at the bottom. And the berries are healing to the heart, but at the same time, they distract us from our lofty goal at the top. They take us sideways. And it's not good or bad, it's just the way it is. Walking the heavenly path is a balance between reaching out for the bliss of the berries, and whatever your berries are, only you know, and reaching upwards for the divine light. In some stories, the strawberry has been banned from reaching the top because of its habit of distracting weary travelers, but not everybody agrees with that story. So if you ask a traditional Algonquin if they had a near-death experience, if they did, they will say, "Oh, I tasted strawberries." And everybody knows what that means. So there's actually a strawberry peak in California. So it's a very widespread understanding among Native people. So I'm not going to read all this, but a Lenape word for strawberries, utihim, seems to mean baby heart. The Udi is heart, in my heart, and the T softens, and spirit of like the wu, the spirit. So teen day is fire. Uti sounds like the spirit of fire. The he means younger baby brother, or in other words, it implies baby heart. And also in the Munsee language, he ni means heart trouble. And it seems to mean that this plant will heal your heart. If the he is borrowed from a form of heal, it could be a variant of to heal. So it means it heals your heart, which is the point. So they put it in the word in Lenape. Witihim means strawberries. See, they eat smaller strawberries, and the larger ones are actually kind of greenhouse developed and hybridized, but the smaller strawberries, the wild ones we eat. It's a baby heart that heals an old one. There's one way to interpret that word. Now, I was walking around Monument Island, which means Berry Island, with a friend who was an Algonquin descendant and an expert on plant medicine. And I was looking all over for medicinal berries all over Berry Island, but I found none. I was starting to feel frustrated, and I yelled out finally, "Hey, if this is Monument Island, where are all the freaking berries?" And she calmly answered, "Well, maybe you're looking in the wrong direction, Evan." And then she gestured upwards and then looked up and then pulled down a handful of mulberries from above my head and placed them in my mouth. Mulberries are big medicine. Wow, I said, I knew my journey towards understanding this mysterious island and berries, medicine berries, was just beginning. And this is a picture of this friend looking up at the berries, but at a different spot. But I just managed to get this photo. It was just an amazing moment in my life. So the mulberry medicine is very important, rarely mentioned in books, but there's a lot to know. Part of Eastern Woodlands diet, and our Algonquin descendants are quite familiar. I had a mulberry tree in my yard. All the kids would eat them as they played. They fell easily to the ground, became slippery mush by midsummer. Bees would swarm around the tree. But impatient for summer to arrive, I would eat the firm white ones in the spring, and I would get sick. I learned only to eat the blue ripe ones later on in the year. So I wondered if the Mohicans in the area of Monument Island thought of mulberries as medicine. So I contacted Mohican elder Idiqua Mohicaneu, who was about 80 and remembers a lot of old traditions. So I got hold of her, and this is her. And she said right away, "Oh, I grew mulberry trees in Rahway when I lived there. And we have one in Pennsylvania. They're very important. It counteracts the negative effects of tomatoes and potatoes, which are the deadly nightshade family and have good and not so good components. So all the dark berries were important to Mohicans. They ate them as each came into their season, one after another, beginning with the strawberries. She knows all about the calendar. As it turns out, they are polyphenols, which you start to hear about on the internet, extremely important for human health since ancient time." And over to the right is her late husband and her mentor, Sagamore, Michael D'Amico, who I knew and was my friend. And he also taught about these things. And I wanted to know if science had insights on mulberry. So I contacted the esteemed Meskwaki Mohawk environmental science professor from Ramapo State College, Chuck Stead. This is him in his cabin. He had bushels to say about mulberries, and he sure didn't learn it from a book. Chuck Stead, leaning into his Meskwaki and Mohawk ancestry and his botanical training, said red mulberries and white were always popular as a dried fruit of a cooked vegetable or cold tea or jelly, but the jelly requires addition of pectin, therefore believed to be maybe European. The vegetable is harvested from the new leading shoot, which are good to collect just as the new leaves are unfolding. Unripe fruit and raw shoots uncooked can be hallucinogenic. The white mulberry was a preferred additive once dried for nut bread. Bread produced from acorn flour with added white mulberry was considered a characteristic treat through southern New York, all of New Jersey. So I ate some dried white berries when I was a kid, and my dad had me visiting elders from Southfield, New York, and they were hard and difficult to eat, but they softened as you kept them in your mouth, and they became sweet and delicious. And you saw a bird up there eating one. This is also Chuck. This is from a phone call. His dad learned to make mulberry wine from a Ramapo elder, and he put it in a recipe, and he put that in a book, which he still has somewhere, just a kind of a diary book. And there were several lores about mulberries, and his father initiated each one to its source, and he knows what those initials mean, but just two letters to remind him who told him. Some Ramapo claim there was fermentation before white came. Mulberries ferment very quickly, but they only stay intact one day after picking. So you got to act fast. And Paul Tappenden was a forager who we both know. He says we should talk to the Mohawk clan mothers about the use of these medicines. There are several elders who believe that the use of fermentation came before whites, but others consider it a taboo and will not talk about it. He said, when I was a kid, I was encouraged to drink father's mulberry wine. It's sweet at the first taste, and then there's this tart aftertaste. But it's all very medicinal. We'd place a sheet on the ground beneath the bush and then shake the branches, and a great number of berries would just fall to the ground, just from the shaking. So we'd spread one of grandma's bed sheets under the bush and then pull up the bed sheet and get a pile of mulberries just in minutes. But that would make grandma mad, because guess why? Red mulberries leave a red stain that looks like blood, and bleach doesn't remove it, and it stains your hands just by picking. So this is a photo of that. So that's Chuck Stead, who's a scientist and a traditionalist. The elders say that bear season is berry season, and they go through the different berries that come up in this certain order, which I'm talking about. That's the calendar. And there are no gaps. There's never no berries. You start with the strawberry, so the bears never go hungry. And mulberry is a really big attraction for bears. There's over here on the right, Morus rubra, the American Indian medicine berry. And over here is a monument in Spain honoring the bear's interest in the Morus nigra, which is the European berry. Now here's Joe Brichat. Some of you may know his books. There's about 200 of them. I knew he had a PhD in science and he lives in Mohican territory, so I talked to him. He grows a lot of plants. As it turns out, there was a day a long time ago, about 1969 or 70, when he was a young man. I think he must have been 28. He had the good fortune to have a long conversation with the great Mohegan elder, tribal historian, and author Gladys Tanticwidgeon. And look at those. This is her lifespan, 1899 to 2005. You think, that must be a typo. No, it's not. She ate healthy. She lived 106 years. She must have been 70 years old at the peak of her fame when she met Joe. She had studied anthropology with Frank Speck, the founder of anthropology of some sort, had been sharing her knowledge with scholars for decades. Then they were joined by a very young girl named Melissa, who was Gladys's niece, who sat and listened to their conversation. Melissa Tanticwidgeon Zobel later became assistant to Aunt Gladys, and then the official medicine woman and tribal historian in the Mohegan Nation in Uncasville. Then she and I were both at Gladys Tanticwidgeon's burial ceremony in 2005, and Joe is now 79. He said red mulberries are the favorite of the bears. They call the black bear the medicine bear because its internal systems are very similar to our own, and they would follow the bears around. The native people would follow the bears, watch and observe what they would eat and what was wrong with them. And then when it was wrong with them too, they'd eat the same thing. They noticed that when bears had diarrhea, they would eat lots of mulberries and assumed that mulberries were a good plant to eat if you have diarrhea or help you with digestion. And they were right. When your stomach's upset, it gets rid of worms, especially. The Cherokee referred to a bear's habitat, places where bears are likely to be found, as the mulberry place. The Cherokee observed the bear's fondness for mulberries. Now, I love this picture up in the right. That's not a guy in a bear suit. That's a bear. The Mohawk have a long particular awareness of the mulberry. Joe suggests they learned it from the local Abenaki after the Mohawks arrived. Ray Fadden, a Mohawk tribal historian, tells a story about an old man who was very sick. Every day he went out to the bush to gather medicine plants, one of which was a mulberry. And as the days went on, he got less sick and more healthy. In the Abenaki version of the story, there came a day when he went out for the very last time and the people of the village spotted him way out in the bushes. He looked back once, twice, 3 times, and then on the 4th time, he turned into a black bear and walked into the trees. Maybe turning into a black bear was symbolic of healing. Joe added, the mourning cloak butterfly is also very fond of mulberries. You see the picture up in the upper right of the mourning cloak butterfly. The elders say it's the spring. This butterfly will take you to the first berries of the mulberries if you follow it. But then its larvae eat the leaves later on. I guess they feel entitled. That's a beautiful, beautiful butterfly. It's the mulberry butterfly. Mulberries had many uses. They used it as dye for clothes, and the color was permanent. They cooked it into a stew to make it sweeter. They also boiled them in water to make a health drink, hot or cooled. Here's a photo. Now, mulberries were used in vision quests because the young white one is toxic, and certain Midewiwin people would eat the white berries just the right amounts. They would not die. Also found a spotter to help them when they're on this vision quest. And the Bahoan, which is Micmac for shaman, would then go along journeys into the spirit world while awake, perhaps to see the future, bring back prophecies and experience other dimensions. The journey might be spiritually purifying. Ingesting these entheogenic plants, as some call them now, might be accompanied by excessive vomiting, but would hopefully lead to enlightenment and an improvement in character. So the vomiting was not the goal and maybe inconvenient, but the overall it was worth it. Fasting for 4 days without water, as Algonquin seek visions today, a lot less dangerous. There's a cultural association between vision quest sites and certain trees or plants whose fruit were used as hallucinogens, even though the plant may not be used. It's the site, and the tree holds that energy. It is as if the spirit of the bush is thought to hold the power. So the wealth of mulberry suggests that Monument Island or Berry Island was used as a sacred site for the purpose of spiritual renewal and for vision quests. And that island is just north of Albany. But the next berry in order, the march of the berries, right? They come in a certain order, is Heulikilash, raspberry. It means it's very, you see it briefly, touch it briefly, and then something bad happens because there's thorns on it. There's a type that grows through July, another that arrives in October, the fall berry. But raspberries often appear after that, after the mulberry. Arriving soon after the raspberry is the chokecherry. It starts out red, but not edible. While it looks delicious, it's not edible and it's poisonous, but then it turns black and then it's very good. It either replaces or is mixed with the mulberry to make pemmican. And that's a travel food, sometimes called black cherry. It's good for the throat. And Saskatoon berries. Now, service berries are important to Native people, also called June berries or Saskatoon berries. I hear they are delicious. They too turn black, usually by mid-July, sometimes hard to tell them from the other, from the Saskatoon. Let's carry that name. But anyway, here they are, very important. Now, then comes the blueberry. Huapeimin means blueberry, but it means old medicine berry, because they knew that their earliest ancestors would go to the blueberries for healing. And scientists in 2009 released research showing that blueberries were highly effective as medicine for a long list of serious maladies, including arthritis and diabetes, placing blueberries near the top of healthy foods recommended by doctors. But this is the old high berry to the Algonquins, and they eat them all they can. Huapeimin, the old medicine berry. To pick berries is mako pua, means to make like a bear. Makuna means to pick. So here's a bear picking his own blueberries, and they do it all the time. And we often see Micmacs go and work cooperatively in the spirit of Kwanzaa, of course, to go and pick large amounts of blueberries in this August time and sell them and eat them themselves, whole teams of Micmacs. I could tell you some stories. But sometimes they find themselves right next to the bear, picking the blueberries right next to them, and the bear never bothers them as it's too busy eating the blueberries. Now, cranberries are next. Cranberries really like sandy soil, and there's a method called sanding where one adds sand to the top of the bog. They're very healthy to eat. Lenape word for this is peckamin. Peck means tart and min means berry. And there's a place that was rich in cranberries in New Jersey called Peckamin by the Lenape. But then the plucky Dutch and then the English renamed it Pluckamin, which is its current name, which seems to mean where we go to pluck berries, or in Dutch, Flukenberries, Flukemin. And there's a cranberry pie, and I hope you have some. Blackberries, this is the last of our berries, known to be the last of the great berries to come up and ripen, and was boiled in the same way, and this is still seen. They arrive in October, but some people grow them indoors in July, but that's not natural, but they're in October. There's a marvelous story Joe Brishek tells. An old Abenaki woman in the forest. Towards the end of autumn, she was boiling blackberries to make her favorite drink before winter. Out of nowhere, the frost spirit comes up. That's him in the upper right, and bullies her, taunting her that the time for berries is coming to an end. Perhaps he blows a cold wind in her face with his foul breath, adding to her distress, then shriveling the pile of blackberries at her side and the entire blackberry bush. She takes a gourd ladle from the side of the pot, which is made from a gourd, obviously, and scoops up the hot blackberry tea and flings it right in his face. Ow! And he runs away screaming to the farthest northern point in the world where he lives to lick his wounds. And she yells, and don't come back until all the blueberries are gone from this here bushes. And of course, he did not. By the way, mulberry trees do not like harsh winters. So that's part of the story. And so she's a tough bird, and she keeps making her blackberries and picking them until the end of the season and the end of the calendar. And so it's always the last one. So when the blackberries are all gone, it's time for winter to make his entrance. But then there's a whole nother thing with the pemmican. winter is not observed until the blackberries are gone. And then some elders will go take their pemmican out of storage, which is a preserved food made with mulberries and venison meat, very compact and used in long winter trips. Many native people still make it today. The Algonquin word is most clearly heard in the Cree language, pimi, which is fat, and kan, which is meat. You take lean deer meat or venison and pound it into a paste with fat and make it into a cake. Also suet, dried fruit, and nuts added, used for emergency energy and for long hunting trips. The mulberry is a key ingredient because, according to Joseph Brusiak elders, there's a wonderful chemical reaction between the mulberry and the venison that cause them to preserve each other so they don't spoil. Only the mulberry seems to have this effect. Also maybe choke cherries, which are mixed in. And I have had several different versions of this reaction confirmed by several elders. So that's the choke cherry dried below, somebody making pemmican. Now, this is one of my favorite details. I just learned this. Of course, the Nihit Hawa Tiduswin is the Cree way of life, and gathering berries is a part of that. And in June, the odamen are preserved, or July, and some are eaten right away. But the Cree use mats made of pine bark, and they lay the berries on the bark in the sun for a whole day to dry. And then they make them into preserves. They would also mix berries with maple syrup and then pour the mix of maple syrup and berries onto the birch bark and then lay it in the sun. Notice it's a different wood. I don't know the significance, but they're very specific. So this is, again, is the way that when we're living life and the berries are like the sweet memories that we have as we're going, we can preserve them in our minds and maybe make notes so that at the end of the year, we can enjoy them. The March of the Berries. So watching any one field throughout the year, you'll notice how one berry appears, then another, and then another. Sometimes two new types of berries will appear before that first one's faded, so they overlap. The following year, it will follow the same general rhythm, and it's a delicious symphony of berries that keep their own calendar. In a world where there's no word for time, it is in that favorite spot, your personal spot during the second year and beyond, that you can use berries to tell time. This calendar is the language of Mother Earth and the way that bears and birds tell time as well. So I'm going to put down a stick to count that last blackberry and the last berries of the year. And here are 5 tobacco prayers that you can do every day that are also good for the beginning of the end of one year and the beginning of another. The medicine shield prayer, you just say, surround me with a medicine shield of healing white light that nothing can penetrate for the next turning of the earth and forever. And the second prayer, Mohoa Luewudi, please, there be no bad things in my heart. Please take them out. And then the guidance prayer, oh great spirit, show me the path, show me the way, and give me instructions today. The healer's prayer, I pray that no harm come to others through my words and my actions, and also that they be beneficial to others, whether I know it or not. And then finally, the Thanksgiving prayer, so we thank Creator for this day we have awakened to. So we ask these 5 things for the year ahead, but of course, try to remember them every morning. So those are 5 tobacco prayers that I find that I do all the time. And that is the end of my slideshow. So I hope you enjoyed it. So I don't use candles, but I have a stick to mark each of the 7 principles, the 7 days of Kwanzaa, and the 7 basically months of the calendar. So I imagine there might be some questions. But what's next on the bill, Bill?
Actually, we have a few minutes for some questions and comments. Let me go back